Up on 3. 30 seconds to tape, 30 seconds to rolling the open. Okay, we'll be on the open for 30. We have another piece of tape following, and then we'll come to you, Tim, a minute 10 in. A minute 10 in, okay? All right.
15 seconds to open.
15 seconds to open. We'll be rolling the open on V1, correct? Or the V2?
It'd be DDR1.
DDR1. Okay, thank you. Coming up in 2, 1, roll it and take it.
Welcome to HEC-TV's
Okay, we're
live
coming out in
interactive
30
program
seconds.
that's
We'll be
part
going
of St.
straight
Louis.
into the next
Production is
tape
pulled together.
piece.
It's going to be a steel
Then we'll
bridge.
go from
cockpit
there
is
to
designed.
V1 and
Highest
Tim's
rated
mic.
green building
It's
in
set
the
up
world.
Welcome to HEC-TV Live.
Okay, very good. So it's going to run back to back.
And then you said 2, 3.
We'll come out to V1. V1, that's correct.
All right, headed to second piece in 2, 1. Second piece rolling.
Kill headphones. Mike?
Welcome to HEC-TV Live. Hi everybody, I'm Tim Gore, your host for today's program, and I'm very happy to welcome you to this special episode we've got going behind the scenes of HEC-TV Live as we give you an inside look at what it takes to put our program together and welcome your questions about what it means to be part of a live television production team. As always, we're interactive in today's program. We're being joined by 2 schools across the country via video conference. I look forward to connecting to McClure North High School in the Ferguson-Florissant District in St. Louis and Kettle Run High School in Nokesville, Virginia throughout the program. I'll remind our video conference groups to please keep your microphones muted during the show. We'll be coming to you for questions often. At that point, unmute your microphone so everybody can see you. And we're actually going to play with a little bit of Polycom and video conference interaction during the show so the world of our TV and internet audience can also see how that works. To our television and internet audience, please send us your email questions throughout the program to live@hectv.org. That's live@hectv.org. Since HEC-TV Live started, we've done probably about 150 programs by this point. Each one of them a little bit different because we're not in the same location for any 2 programs. So to start with, we wanted to give you a little video overview of some of the locations we've been to in recent years. So let's run that video now. And I'm very happy to welcome you to South St. Louis County, specifically Bus and Quarry, to welcome you to Forest Park, to welcome you to the Climate Change Exhibition here at the St. Louis Science Center, to welcome you now to the Pits, the location in the America Center related next door to the Edward Jones Dome. Welcome to the Third Baptist Church here in St. Louis, Missouri. Welcome to the James S. McDonald USO headquarters right here in Lambert Airport in St. Louis. And I'm very happy to welcome you to the library at Barack Obama Elementary School here in the Normandy School District. Drummer Boy's Battle Drum, the Civil War, is actually happening at the auditorium that's here at the Missouri History Museum. And we're going to be meeting some folks related to that Civil War exhibition. One of the great uniquenesses as well as the challenges of our program is that we come from so many different locations, and that video gives you a little idea of the variety of locations we've been to. Bus and Quarry for a show about explosions. We've been to the St. Louis Science Center. We've been to the Missouri History Museum. We've been inside theaters. We've been on sidewalks. And today, of course, we're in another location. We're actually inside a room. And you can tell at this point that I've moved from one set to the other. We're looking forward to letting everybody have a chance to see what it's like to put a show together, and especially our TV audience to get a sense of what it's like as we interact with these schools from across the country. Don't forget, if you're joining us via the internet or television, you can email your questions to us at live@hectv.org. That's live@hectv.org. So where are we today? Well, we're actually in the Dana Brown Communications building here in the Grand Center Entertainment District in St. Louis, where HEC-TV has its offices, Channel 9, local public television has its offices, Fox Sports Midwest comes out of this building as well. Different TV operations happen here, and we're in one of the meeting rooms in that location. Obviously, what you're seeing now is part of that, so let's take a moment to look at what we've got set up here today as we think about equipment arrangement and setup. You'll notice that behind me we've got a cloth right here, and we're going to take a moment to walk over to the right where you guys are going to get a chance to see what I was standing in front of before, the green screen. We're going to spend some time talking about green screen technology in today's program. And if we go back this way a little bit, you're going to see that wonderful crew that you were hearing as we started the program. And thank you for that microphone, because we're going to have a chance to meet the crew. And you see the operation. We're a little tighter than we would be for a lot of our programs. Obviously, we're outside at Bus and Quarry. There'd be a lot more cable set up and all sorts of things. We had the opportunity this morning as we were setting up to give you a time-lapse video of the setup in this room. So we're going to look at that time-lapse video, then we're going to go to our first student group's questions interactively. So let's run that time-lapse video now.
It's on. How long is it now for real? 1 minute 45 seconds. There's no sound on it, Tim. Do you want to open this mic and have him do voiceover? Yes.
So the setup, how long a setup take obviously depends on what location we're actually at. In this room, pretty small room, we're actually in the building that all our equipment is located in, so that made it a little bit easier too. But it takes anywhere between 90 minutes and probably 2 hours for the total setup to be done. 3-camera shoot. Lights have to be set up. Today, of course, we're also showing you a green screen, and we're going to be interacting with the green screen, which normally wouldn't be part of our setup. You're seeing the TriCaster go in. That's our portable video studio, which you're going to have a chance to see a little bit about. You see the video screens that are there, the audio board as well. All of that being the different pieces of equipment that go together to make this setup happen. They obviously have to figure out how they want to dress the set as well, so the placement of chairs matters a great deal. Where exactly am I going to sit on this fabulous little stool they've got me on this morning? Where am I going to sit in front of the green screen? That kind of thing. What works for the cameras? Got to think about camera angles. Got to think about distance from the camera to the people who are being seen on the camera. What kinds of different shots? Got to think about the different lighting and where you want it to be. We don't wear makeup, believe it or not. I'm not wearing makeup for high-definition television. So however much glare is coming off the top of my head through a program is going to depend on how that lighting is set up. That obviously is going to matter to us. And we've also got to think about the fact that in many instances we've got guests who are joining us. So we've got to light for multiple guests, maybe more than one location. And we've also got to think about audio. In addition to my lavalier mic, which we've got here, which is operating wirelessly today, I'm going to be using a handheld microphone as well today so that you can hear the questions and answers from members of the crew. And that's all going to be part of the process. So there you get a little behind-the-scenes time-lapse activity. We want to begin by letting you ask questions about equipment arrangement and setup, and then throughout the course of the program this morning, we're going to look at different aspects of it specifically: lighting, camera, angles. To give you a chance to talk to the director and hear how a show is called. We're going to look at the green screen specifically, we're going to look at audio specifically, and we're going to look at the challenges of different locations. But right now, what questions and comments do you have about the equipment that we use and what the setup process is like? If you're joining us interactively via internet or television, it's live at HEC-TV.org that you can send your email questions to. Let's go out to Nokesville, Virginia, Kettle Run High School in Nokesville, Virginia. Please unmute your microphone, identify yourself. And teacher, thanks for identifying your location. If one of your students has a question now, please identify them by name and we'll welcome that question.
What is it like behind the scenes at a television show?
Okay. And I think I'll start that question by going to our producer, Jackie Poor. So Jackie, talk a little bit about the last, few minutes before our show gets going, what it's like behind the scenes.
It's quite hectic. We're trying to get everything set up with the Polycom, double checking our audio, making sure that we have all of our roll-ins. For example, that time-lapse video, they did it this morning. They ran back there and edited it and brought it back here literally 5 minutes before we went on the air.
And you guys are going to notice in terms of the equipment, we'll pan a little bit to my left here. That's Laurent Torno that you're seeing on the audio board. You're going to notice that there's all sorts of levels going up and down, and hopefully Tim is not getting into the red too much as Laurent does that work. And then if we swing back to your right, you see our technical director, Colby Marshall, who's actually operating the TriCaster, which is the portable video studio. And to his right is John Baker, who's our director for this program. And then you see the variety of camera people as well. Nokesville, we look forward to lots more questions during the show. Let's go to McClure North in the Ferguson-Florissant district. Mr. Hampton, if you guys could come in, identify yourself. What's your first question?
This is Maggie. She's one of the gifted elementary students, and she had a question for you.
Do you take the equipment down every day and set it back up the next day?
Oh, yes. We take
Does the equipment get broken down and set up every day?
Every time we've got a different live program. So we do somewhere between 2 and 3 program days a month. And so, for example, we just did a show last Thursday. We did 2 programs last Thursday from Hopeville High School Library. Today we're here at the Dana Brown's Communication Building. On April 12th, we're actually going to be out in the Ferguson-Florissant district at their Outdoor Education Center. So we'll have both an indoor and an outdoor part of that program. So where we are varies a great deal. We don't set it up every day because we don't do live programs every day, but every time we set it up, it's a unique location. Thanks for that question. Kettle Run, I'll go back to you guys. Another question about specific equipment and setup. and then I'll come back to McClure North as well. Kettle Run?
Hi, I'm Caroline Silas, and I was wondering what kind of difficulties are experienced from behind the scenes that don't get shown on air.
Well, obviously, there are never any difficulties whatsoever, and my nose grows longer. Justin, I'll bring you in. Justin Brown, Polycom video conference interaction guru for us. Give the students some examples of things we're dealing with on a fairly regular basis.
A lot of times it's the audio. We always set up 3 cameras, but there's many mics, and some days there's 2 mics, some days there's 5, and that can be a little confusing. And we have to loop the audio from the audio board through the Polycom and through the TriCaster, and that can get confusing.
And for an example of that this morning, I have an IFB obviously in my ear when I have the opportunity to hear the director and the producer speak to me, voices that I actually do want to hear in this specific instance. And it was working for a period of time as we set up this morning, then all of a sudden it wasn't working anymore, and we had to do a kind of a mad scramble 10 minutes before the program to make sure that my IFB was going to work. So there's always that kind of particular hassle, and you always have to worry about a cable connection. Is that cable working when all of a sudden the video doesn't operate? Great question, Kettle Run. Let's go back to McClure North. Another question from you guys, Mr. Hampton?
How many watts does all of the equipment use up, like per cast?
Mr. Marshall, what do you think in terms of that? Do we have to worry about that at all?
Not in this building.
But that is a concern for us on other locations, right?
Correct, especially in older buildings. We do have an occasional problem with that, but not here.
Not here. And during the course of the program, you guys may be hearing other audio as well, because this handheld microphone may pick up John Baker, our director, as you hear him call for cues and that kind of thing. So there's a little bit of information for you about equipment, arrangement, and setup. And I'm being told that we've got some email questions that have come in. So now I get the opportunity to go back to this set, and the camera people get to move around very quickly and go, oh my gosh, Tim, how fast are you moving us? And go to the phone where those are being texted to me. Don't forget, you can send us your email questions to live@hectv.org. Oh, Richard, a great question. How much would all this equipment cost? Well, I'm not sure that the director of HEC-TV necessarily is going to want me to give out the absolute amount of information, but in terms of I'm going to have to walk again, Pete. In terms of specifically, Colby, like the TriCaster, this particular piece of equipment, the TriCaster, is about what?
Somewhere in the $40,000 to $45,000 range.
And generally speaking, Bake, good cameras are going to run you?
Anywhere from 8 to you can go up to 45,000 or more. The lenses cost almost as much as the cameras in some cases.
Okay, and then of course, Laurent, I'll ask you a question here a little bit about lighting equipment. Those nice big umbrella things we've got, and those other lighting things.
Yeah, one of these light kits is about $3,000 for 5 light fixtures, 1,000 watt, a 650, a 300, and 2 150s. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so if we do a little pan around the room, then you can see the amount of lights we've got going, you can see the amount of cameras that we've got going, and I'll let you do a little math lesson right now and figure out what all that adds up to in your head. Very cool. So there's some details about equipment arrangement and setup. I know you guys are potentially going to have more questions about that as we go throughout the show, so feel free to bring them back in for us. And remember, if you're watching via the internet or television, it's live at HEC-TV.org. We want to next go to the process, though, of calling a show. And to call a show, obviously, that's the director's excitement and obligation. So, Bake, give the students a little bit of information about, like, training for that kind of thing, about calling a show. Is it all practice? Do you actually take classes in this kind of thing?
I think everybody kind of takes a different route to get there. I mean, I worked at a television station and first started doing master control, and then became a technical director and then a director. And you learn, there's certain rules that you learn, and framings and things that you learn, and ways to do. And live directing is different from directing something that's going to be post-produced.
Talk a little bit about the distinction between that. As a live director, what are you concerned about that in a post-production you won't be concerned about?
Well, in a live production, you have to get it as right as you can the first time. When you're doing something that you know is going to be posted, you do multiple takes often. You have some variety in framing. We have 2 cameras here that are on tripods. We have one that's handheld, so we have some variety that we can get with a handheld camera, while the other 2 cameras, although they move a little bit, are kind of from fixed positions. When you're doing something that's post-produced, you might do it all with one camera, and that camera keeps changing the positions for you.
Would you like to give the students a little example of calling a show? Like you
well,
could take me from here to out front and let them hear what camera's going to run?
I could. First, I'm going to ask Pete for a close-up on me.
Okay, go for it. Because naturally, we want to show your best side, John.
So I can do that. And then I could say, I could cue you to walk there so we don't actually have to watch you walk, and they can watch me direct, and then you can automatically appear on the other set. So
well, let's go for it. I'll let you hold the microphone.
Okay, you take off, and then
Okay.
I will sit there and I'll say standby to take camera one, because you give standby so that camera one has a chance to go over there and get Tim in position, and then he'll check his focus and his shot, and then I'll after the standby, I'll say take one, and there is Tim on camera.
And now Tim gets to talk on camera, and hopefully Tim will have something to say. One of the things that might be interesting for you to note is that we don't do it, it's all live. We don't use a teleprompter during these programs at all. And so the conversation is just happening live. Our goal is to provide a live, interactive educational opportunity for students on different topics. Today's topic is obviously behind the scenes of a television program. Last Thursday's topic was about Civil War and primary sources. Next April's topic is going to be about the world of outdoor education. We're going to learn about water quality and how you test for water quality. So topics vary all the time. We know what we're talking about. It's organized from an outlines perspective, but there's no specific teleprompter. There's no specific word-for-word script, because to a large extent it's based on student questions. Where do you guys want to take us during the program? So there you got some information about calling a show. Let's see if you've got questions again about equipment arrangement and setup so far, or for the director about calling a show, and then we're going to show you some specific things about lights and cameras and all that good world of TV. So Kettle Run, I'll go back to you guys. Another question from you?
What's the worst thing that's ever happened to you on set?
What's the worst thing that's ever happened to us on set live? Well, I'll let other people answer that question first. Raise your hands, crew members. Who wants to volunteer a horrible moment in time? This is very much like a classroom setting. No one wants to admit to the teacher that something ever might have gone wrong. So again, we're live, and the host gets to fill time at this moment in time while the folks raise their hand. Oh, Lauren, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share.
There's my stick mic. One of the old sayings is that half of video and half of film is audio, and we take audio for granted. I'm by training, I'm a photographer. I'm not even a videographer, so I'm learning all this just like you guys are. It's all new to me, and right now I'm trying to learn audio, and it's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother dimension. And what happens often is I miss my mic cue. Even when I was talking, I'm bringing my mic level up and down right now. So that's when the stick mic's on camera, you should hear the stick mic. So it's little things like that. Missing an audio cue, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I can remember times when my IFB wouldn't work. And so therefore, people are shouting, not necessarily shouting at me, but gesturing wildly to me with fingers, or they're attempting to put something on a piece of paper. That happens every so often. I can't think of anything really, truly terrible that's ever occurred. Oh, obviously, since we're interacting with kids via video conference, one of the unique challenges of this opportunity, of this program, which wouldn't happen with other live shows, is that we go places we can't control. So if we were at your school, for example, Kettle Run, and a fire alarm went off and your microphone was open, then we would switch to your school, because that interactive video conference system is sound activated. And that's happened to us for sure. A school bell might ring, and so it goes back to that school even though they don't have a question. A fire alarm might go off, so they go back to that. And now there you saw an example. I'm talking to camera one, someone in my ear is telling me to look at camera two, I'm talking too loud and I can't hear them, and now I see that the guy is actually pointing his fingers at camera two, and I can look at camera two now. So there's another example of those kinds of things that you have to think about. Let's go back to McClure North. Another question from McClure North.
How many people are involved?
Thanks, Sabrina, for your question very much. Well, as Pete pans around, you guys are going to notice that there's the director, the technical director, the producer, the audio man, the Polycom guy. I'm up to 5 so far in my fingers. We've got 3 camera people. That makes 8. We've got 2 other folks here to help us with gaffing, cable situations, microphone situations. That makes 10. We've got an individual who's getting all the email questions for us. That makes 11. And then there's me. So I guess we're at a nice even dozen here inside, and then we've got to go to people who are helping us outside of this room. We've got a guy named Rob Garcia, who's Master Control Liaison and the Operations Manager for the station, Boyd Pickup. They're monitoring the program as it happens. So if anything is going wrong during the show itself, they can monitor that and let us know. So that adds up to 14 folks, I guess, for the show to happen. So all of that goes into the process of putting this show together. So there's some basic information about calling a show, basic information about equipment arrangement and setup. If you've got more questions on that, don't forget you can always email them to us at live@hectv.org. And I look forward to getting more questions coming to my cell phone, little texts about that. Oh, and here we've got one that's actually come in. Thank you, Helen. How do the director and the producer stay on the same page? Well, naturally, we are reality, but we don't want to be a reality show drama program here, so we won't get too Housewives of Atlanta on us. But in terms of staying on the same page, Jackie, talk a little bit about that.
That's quite challenging sometimes. Sometimes I'll have a vision that's a little different than the director or the technical director or yourself, but we all work it out in the end.
I love the way you phrased that. We all work that out in the end. That's ditto to you, right, Bake?
Take camera 2. Yeah. We have this thing which is a rundown of the show, and this is going to give me the information that I need to direct it. Now, because it's a live show, we may be skipping things, we may be bouncing around, but I know the sources and the material that we're working with, and Jackie and I will communicate on what direction we go depending on time. If one segment we get a lot of student questions in a segment and it goes long, we have to trim somewhere else because we have to be out on the hour. So we communicate, but this is kind of the map that we use, and we stray from it, but it helps.
Great, thanks for that question. We want to move on into the area about lights, cameras, and cabling. You notice I'm walking over a whole bunch of cables as we do this program. There's a difference between cable runs, though, for every show, because we're never really sure exactly what that location is going to be like. So last week at the Oakville High School Library, we had the opportunity to actually film the cable run because we had a satellite TV truck outside the building that was going to get the signal back to the TV station. Here, luckily, we don't have to worry about that because we're already in the station. So let's roll that cabling video. And so you see that we start with the satellite truck. We have to go inside the building, sometimes up walls, over doors, through places, down hallways, because the library is not necessarily right by where the satellite truck is going to be. We come into the library. You notice the TriCaster set up there where all that material is going, and eventually that cable goes to a camera. So how long the cable run lasts just depends on what the location is. If you remember the footage from the opening montage where we showed you different locations, one of them was from Bus and Quarry outside. Lots of cabling for that run, obviously, because we were outside over distances. That could make a great deal of difference. But sometimes the cabling is much more challenging from an interior perspective because you have to get inside the building, worry about doors closing on your cables, going up into stairwells. We did a program from the federal courthouse building here in St. Louis, and we had to throw cable down like a 5-story atrium down to the ground below. So there's a lot of cabling that goes into it. We want to give you a couple of opportunities to think in advance about use of cameras and about lighting and how that affects the program. So you notice that we've got all sorts of different cameras operating today. We've got a handheld camera that Pete Foggy is operating. We've got 2 cameras on tripods as well. We're usually a 3-camera show. Now, you guys at McClure North, let's talk a little bit about your operation so the world can have a sense of that. Mr. Hampton or one of your students, when you guys are doing a television program, how many cameras are you guys using? Are you in a pretty static set location? What thoughts come to your mind, guys, to explain that to folks?
Eric will tell you a little bit about that, and I'll fill in the gaps. Go ahead, Eric. Tell them what we do on our normal newscast here at North.
Well, we have 3 cameras for our talents. We have 1 camera for our weather, and we have 2 or 3 cameras for our special report that we use. We usually use 1 camera. We have used 2 cameras in the past for special report because it was like an overview of what a lady was doing a demonstration of, and also a face view. So we have 3 plus, we have 7 or 8 cameras that we usually use. So
we frequently have an outside, well, we always have an outside camera set up too. We do a weather portion of our live newscast every day, and so we have an outside shot for that. So anywhere from 6 to maybe 9 or 10 cameras that we're using on our regular daily newscast.
I want to go to Kettle Run and ask you guys a question from a journalistic perspective about the impact of camera angles. What would you tell me in terms of like how the use of a different shot can affect the way people respond to a story? The use of close-ups versus far-away shots, use of pans, that kind of thing. How do you think the camera actually influences how people respond to a shot? When I ask you that question, Kettle Run, who'd like to offer some ideas?
Well, when we do our broadcasts, we only use 1 stationary camera, so we really don't have a lot of camera angles.
That's good to know that you've got that one camera shot, which obviously limits you to some extent. You don't get those angles. We want you guys to have an example of looking at the power of different cameras and the power of different camera angles by looking at a segment from a program we did earlier this year from the Blanche M. Tuhill Theater at the University of Missouri St. Louis, which was all about dance. We had an opportunity to do a program with the Modern American Dance Company. We're going to run that video now so you can see the variety of camera angles, and we'll see what questions you guys have about it and cameras in general. So we were at the Blanche M. Tuhill, the Desley Theater there. We had the opportunity for the performers to dance live for us during the show. You're going to notice that in this instance, we were really lucky with that location and something that we were able to do different with our camera angles than we obviously can't necessarily do in this room. We'll talk a little bit about the shot you're seeing right now. I want you guys to think about how you think that was created, that shot that you're looking at now, how you think that was created. Then you see this shot here particularly, obviously different. The director has switched to that live during the program because they're seeing different shots on their TriCaster throughout the program to make a decision about what they want to switch to. And now you see another third shot as well, so that wide variety of things. As you guys look at that example and you think about cameras, McClure North, I'll go to you guys first. Comments on what you just saw, ideas about how we did that big overhead shot, it'd be cool to see what your thoughts are on that, and questions you guys have about cameras and the use of them in a television program. Go for it, McClure.
What's the most interesting kind of shot you've done with your cameras?
Oh, that's a really cool question. I'm going to go to our camera people to talk about that. Pete Foggy, since you're enjoying the wonderful world of the handheld today, and some of your camera work is what we actually just saw in that program, those handheld shots we saw, talk a little bit about that. What are some cool things you've been able to do?
Well, my theory is the eye is always alive. So when you're always shooting things, trying to think of different angles, they'll just straight on, think, how can I make this shot look even better? How can I get the audience right in there, in the heart of the performance? So that's what I look for.
Very cool. That's a great question. Let's go back to Kettle Run in Nokesville, Virginia. Kettle Run, another question from all of you.
Does a different camera angle change somebody's perspective on the shot?
Oh, does the different camera angle change somebody's perspective? I think it definitely changes somebody's perspective. Speaking as a camera person, Pete, okay, talk about an interesting camera angle. I have no idea if we've gone to Pete's shot or not because I'm not seeing the monitor. But here we have Pete's interesting camera shot. Now, I'll come down like this so Pete can actually get the microphone and we'll go up. What do you think about that? Does the different camera actually...
This camera angle shows that you have power and authority. And if you go up this way, that means that I got power over you.
So different camera angle makes a great deal of difference in terms of perspective.
Get funky.
Makes different perspective again. So yeah, I think the amazing thing about cameras and television programs is that they dictate what you consider to be reality. I mean, think about how we opened the show. I was sitting in one location. Then I moved to another location, and you had no idea necessarily what room we were in. Now you look at the space we're in, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, this is not exactly what I would call the Taj Mahal of beautiful spaces. It's just your basic meeting room. But you can make that meeting room be almost anything you want it to be because you put a drop cloth up on the wall, and you create a little space where Tim can sit. And as we'll show you later in the program, you can do almost anything you want to with the wonderful world of green screen. I want to go back and also talk a little bit about that Modern American Dance Company example that you saw. One of the cool things about that program was that we were actually in a theater, which had, obviously the lighting up above the audience space as well as the stage space, and it had those, walkways that you can run to you can walk on to adjust lights. We may run on them if you need to desperately, to walk